You've tested your laptop and everything? You're satisfied? Not like the other centers. Like we found them to be not ready. This one is ready. Thanks to him.
We're still have to do some work here.
Okay.
So inshallah, like I'll change speakers and everything. But it's working for now.
Let me know if you need any help from me. Okay?
Don't worry. We'll laugh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today is the first of the 10 lectures in a series of 10 lectures to be conducted in English by Dr. Hasnain. Walji. Would like to thank and welcome him for having taken his time and joined us for this Muharram so that we can benefit from his the wonderful words of wisdom during the first 10 days, inshallah. Without further ado, I'd like to request Brother Jawab to come ahead and open the session with the recitation of the verses of the Quran. Please welcome him with a loud salawat. And if I may encourage all of you to move forward and sit up to the front so that those who come in later are not disturbing the lecture. So I'd like to request all of you who are sitting in the back with a loud salawat to move forward. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Wow.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Now I'd like to, Dr. Walji needs no introduction obviously, but the tradition calls for one. He's obviously a researcher, speaker, and a writer. He has, to his credit, about 26 books that he has written. He is well known for his work for the Muslim community, especially for the Shia Muslim community, for over 30 years, spanning from 1976. He served the World Federation of Khoja Shia Nashri Muslim Communities as Secretary General, Vice President, and then as President of the Scholars Party. He's also a founding director and current president of Mulasa Memorial Library and Resource Center in Toronto. He has served as an editor of Shia International and Living Islam magazine and a regular contributor to a number of Islamic journals. The list goes on. I've had the honor of working under his tutelage on a number of different projects also. I call him a student of his. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Before I begin, I'd like to formally thank Sheikh Salani and the organizers here at the Al-Khoei Center for inviting me to share a few words with you as we commemorate the Shahadat of Imam Hussain during this Muharram. This presentation is going to be in 10 parts. I encourage you to actually follow along the presentations because these are sequential presentations and we hope that you will benefit from it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والحمد لله الذي جعلني من أمتي سيد المرسلين خاتم النبيين تعاسي أحمد محمود أبو القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على
ومن المحبين عترة الطاحين وعلة النائمين لأعدائهم أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
As we begin this series on uplifting ourselves and ensuring that we benefit from these days, I would like to present to you this ayah of the Holy Quran, ayah number 2 of Surah Al-Ma'idah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that help one another in goodness and in piety, in bir and taqwa, and do not help one another in sin and in aggression. I chose this particular verse, or part of this verse, because that encompasses the entire essence of the presentations, the reflections that we will have. And Mu'mineen, I'd like you to think with me. This is not a one-way delivery. Please be with me. This is what they call Dawat al-Fikr. It's an invitation for us to think together. And therefore, today, the world where it is needs this ayah more than anything else, everything that's going on this planet. If we were to help each other in goodness and piety and stop assisting each other in sin and aggression, this world would be a much better place. And hence, we have chosen this particular verse as the essence of the presentation. Muharram 1444. It's a new one. These are new beginnings. We do not celebrate, as we well know, and I do not need to elaborate on that. It is a time for commemoration. 1,383 years on, we continue to remember Abu Abdullah. We continue to remember the Shuhada of Karbala. And as we do that, we do it, as I said before, with reflection and introspection. Reflection is what we hear, what we read, and introspection is how do we apply those teachings to our daily lives so that there is a change. And the whole idea is a change is for what? The change is to go back to the ayah, to go towards bir and taqwa. These two terms are very heavy terms. If I were to try, if anybody tries to explain, it would take 2 to 3 lectures just to even begin to talk about bir. I will not go into that. Suffice it to say that the bir and taqwa is where we have the intention of setting things right within ourselves and in our societies where we live in. Each one of us has a responsibility to our fellow beings to ensure that there is social justice that is being established wherever we live, whether it's within our own family, social justice, whether it's within a vicinity where we live, the neighborhood, or the country and the planet, the entire planet. Each one has a responsibility. And that is the intention of setting things right within ourselves and our society. Yes, we do that all the time, don't we? Control, all, delete. When everything becomes unstable, that's what we do. To reset the system. So here, Muharram gives us an opportunity to do that control, all, delete, to reset our systems. Because life has become unstable, particularly in this day and age of COVID. Things have become different. They may never be the same again in more ways than one. I have an opportunity to reset my system. My question is, I was here in this center or elsewhere, where I participated in the Azhar of Abu Abdullah, in the commemorations of the tragedy of Karbala. Question I need to ask myself today is, I sit through this presentation, through this majlis, through these commemorations, am I a better human being than I was last year? That's a question I need to ask myself. And there's even a better question. Will I be a better human being next year, having gone through the introspection and the reflections that we have? Those are the questions that we need to begin with, and especially with what COVID has done to us. The lectures will address some of the mental health issues, not from a medical perspective, but from a spiritual, from a physical, at the same time from a mindset perspective, because this has become a global issue. Mental health, anxiety disorders, depression, psychotic disorders, dementia, eating disorders. Indeed, I was staggered. I don't know what the numbers are for 2022, God forbid. But in 2019, as we were going into this, that 1 in every 8 people, 970 million people around the world were living with a mental disorder. I shudder to think what it is today. It has impact on our societies. None of us are immune from it. We all have friends, family who are suffering one way or another, ourselves. The idea is to notice. The idea is to deal with it. Not as sometimes what we tend to do is to brush mental health issues under the carpet because there's a stigma about it. We refuse to get advice, medical advice, counseling, whatever is available to us, because this affects our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Indeed, it affects everything that we do, how we think, how we feel, how we act. And inshallah, this series is to empower us to better understand the core issues around mental health and those ailments that come with an imbalance in our mental health. Let me also give a disclaimer here, that these lectures or these advices that we get from the pulpit are not a substitute for medical advice. If you need it, get help. We all need to recognize that if our friends and family have issues, it's not a stigma to try and seek help, and we have help available from the medical professionals from the healthcare professionals, and so on and so forth. I belong to a national organization which is called American Muslim Health Professionals. And American Muslim Health Professionals has taken it as one of the main strands of work to create mental health awareness in our nation, not just for Muslims, but for the wider population at large. And we have, and you may want to take advantage of this, that we have a course which is called Mental Health First Aid. Like any other first aid, if we are able to spot the early signs of mental issues, we can save so much. We can save so much anguish. And these courses are available to be taken by caregivers, by leaders, by our scholars, by those who have children under their ward, be it teachers, madrasa teachers, whoever it may be. You can talk to me later about these courses if you're at all interested. But if you find somebody within your circles who needs this, please, 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 do not brush it under the carpet. It's not a matter of a mood or a bad mood. Get help. That's what I can say. Well, in order to build a picture, a holistic picture, as to how we can be more spiritually balanced human beings, how can we be more socially balanced human beings, we need to take this in the context of Karbala. Because Karbala teaches us, gives us many, many lessons. And I begin here. I begin on the day of Ashur. The Ashur of Ashur. When all had given their lives. There was this man who stands on a sand dune in Karbala. We all know him. And like a muazzin, he calls out in 4 different directions. He says, Hasnain, Nasirin, and so on. 4 times he turns in 4 different directions, it is reported. Who was he calling out to? He was calling out to all of us. That is why he turned in 4 directions and made sure that his call reverberated in all directions. Why? Why did he do that? I believe it was not just a call for Muslims. It was a call to humanity of every generation, in every land. This was a call towards the establishment of justice, and in particular, social justice and equity in every society. You know, those who wanted to help him had laid down their lives. Why would he call out to those who lay on the plains of Karbala? That tells us that he was calling out to you and to me, to each one of us, to say, is there a helper who is going to help me? Just to build a picture, that as he was leaving Medina on the 28th of Rajab, 60 Hijrah, these are the words, the famous words of Imam that are repeated every year so many times. وَإِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ الْإِسْلَامِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّي. That I am setting out, I am leaving for the Islam, for the development, for the betterment, for the Islam, as it's hard to actually translate the word Islam. Is much wider than just revival. It's wider than just making things better. It's much more. It's holistic, and that's something that we need to understand. So he was saying that it's for the Islam of the Ummah of my grandfather, so that that example could be shown for the rest of humanity to actually see what Islam actually means. It was not just a matter that Imam was going out to fight Yazid to get the throne. His mission was to rekindle the Islamic conscience. Nay, I say to rekindle the conscience of humanity, which was nearing extinction at the time of Muawiyah, followed by Yazid. This is what they were doing. So I want you to look at this picture and transport you back, because this is what we need to do, understand in context as to what was happening. When he says, I am going out for the Islah of the Ummah of my grandfather, what does it mean? What was that Ummah? Well, this could be a picture of that time in Arabia, where the strong thrived on exploiting the weak, women were abused, and success was measured by the number of camels that you owned. This was a society when the Blessed Prophet appeared on the horizon to redress the injustices in that society. This was a prevailing environment in Makkah at that time. There was no moral code. Ignorance was a symbol of pride. Slavery was commonly practiced. The weak had no rights, no human dignity. Young girls were buried alive. Warfare and bloodshed was actually a hobby, sport, and a pastime. And it is a known fact that this was a period in which the Blessed Prophet Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born at one of the darkest periods of human history. As I said, no moral code, warfare, bloodshed, idolatry was prevalent everywhere. This was the visage of Arabia at that time, in Makkah, for example. And this is what was happening. And then here comes a man, the Blessed Prophet, who is a rahmah upon the world, Alameen, Rahmatul lil Alameen. He comes as a blessing and he gives a message, says, Kulu la ilaha illallah tuflihu. Say la ilaha illallah so that you may be relieved. Again, the idea of falah. He said tuflihu, same root word. Say la ilaha illallah so that you may be delivered, so that you may get Islam. This is what Imam Hussain al-Islam was referring to when he was talking about the Islam of the community of his grandfather. What a liberating message that was. Well, the society started migrating from Jahiliyyah. He tilted the balance of tribal power. He was able to contain the chieftains. And all this gave people who were oppressed the new strength to stand up to oppression. And this is what the message of La ilaha illallah was. Hazrat Bilal listened to that message of Kulu la ilaha illallah tuflihu. And as he was being beaten by his masters for saying La ilaha illallah and believing in Tawheed, all he could utter as he was being beaten were the words Ahad. Every time he was beaten by his masters on the floor, he said Ahad. Proclaiming that level of Tawheed, it gave Hazrat Bilal a new strength to stand up to any zulm, any oppression that there was, because that is how Rasulullah was able to kill the man. We know from history that the parents of Ammar Yasir and his wife Sumaya, Ammar's mother, were not with their son Ammar at that time. Suddenly they see the idol that they were worshipping fall down from the mantelpiece where it was. As the idol falls, it breaks. And Yasir and Sumaya perceived that an idol which could not help itself could not possibly help. And they came towards the great faith, understanding the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, understanding the message of La ilaha illallah, which was a liberating message. Unfortunately, as we know, and this is not a history session, but suffice it to say that Makkah could not digest this message. And the Prophet had to migrate from Makkah to Medina. Well, that is a context. That is what Imam Hussein was trying to do when he said that I am going out for the Islah of the Ummah of my grandfather, because less than 50 years or just about 50 years later, the balance that was tilted had now come back to the period of Jahiliyyah under Muawiyah and under Yazid. And therefore, Islam, and I wanted to build this picture, that Islam cannot be separated from Karbala. If you take out Imam Hussein al-Islam out of the equation, then, or if Imam Hussein had not risen up, then the teachings of the Blessed Prophet that I just described, the impact of La ilaha illallah, the impact of Qulu La ilaha illallah, the deliverance that he was talking about, would have been replaced by Zulm, by the religion of Yazid. And this is what we need to understand and believe, that Karbala is a unifying event for the entire humanity. Its cause is timeless. To stand up to a tyrant is a timeless cause. The history has taught us that these tyrants have come at every era, and there have been people who have stood up. Imam Hussein was the ultimate embodiment of standing up to a tyrant. So the cause was timeless. The values of justice, the values of compassion, and inshallah we'll be talking about all these values in the days to come. The value of empathy, the value of love, the value of sacrifice. These values that were shown in Karbala are all universal. The entire world can take that lesson from it. And this is what we, those who commemorate Karbala, need to do to make sure that people that we work with, those who do not know Hussein yet, must be given this message that these values were universal indeed. Karbala was a call in response to the human fitrah, in a sense of freedom and justice, a value that has been given to all of us. A small child sitting on a dining table, if they see parents or hear the parents thinking about something negative that they may be doing to someone else or cheating someone else, God forbid, that zamir, that fitrah of that child will say, but Dad, that's not fair. This is what fitrah is, but as we go through, there is this nafs ammara which takes us towards the animalistic things. There is also that nafs lawama in us, the self-blaming soul, that takes us away from that. And when your nafs lawama becomes so blunted that you do not feel the injustices that you are doing, and therefore that voice is silenced. But otherwise, Allah has given each one of us the idea of nafs al-lawama so that we can stand up. We can think for ourselves and have that fitrah of freedom and justice, which is an inherent value in each of us. This is in the day and age of Twitter and short sound bites. Let me share some sound bites with you. I call these the sound bites of Karbala, the sound bites of Imam Hussein al-Islam. Karbala is of the meaning of Tawheed, of the knowledge of God, of resignation and submission, of fortitude and courage, of honor and dignity, and a quest for freedom and a concern for mankind. That's where I began to say that help each other in bir and in taqwa, in goodness and in piety. This is the concern for mankind and the idea, the passion to actually serve humanity. And if these days cannot give us a life focus and the purpose of exploring those lessons of Karbala, then what have we truly achieved? And I'd like to reflect with you together. What are these lessons of Karbala that we learn? As we move through these lessons, we will try and elucidate on each one of them. This is an introductory piece today, so that we know the scope of the discussion we're going to have. But the idea is being courageous in the face of hardship, being true to yourself, being honest with yourself, making sure that that fitrah, that nafs al-lawama actually tells you that this is not right, I have to stand up for it, and daring to speak the truth. Speaking truth to power is not easy, whatever situation may be, but this is what Karbala teaches us. It teaches us to fight against injustice and oppression, as I said before. And Karbala also promotes compassion and understanding. All these, inshallah, we will be covering in the days to come. And of course, humanity comes to the fore, that we want to care for those who are in need. So, what is the goal? To be inspired to contribute to society, to give your life some passion and fulfillment. This is where it changes. Mu'mineen is not just about waking up in the morning, going to work, earning those dollars, coming back home, watching something else on that 90-inch jamara that I call it, and go to sleep, wake up the following morning, go to work, and the cycle continues. That is not us. As humans, we have the passion and we need to fulfill it. We, inspired by Karbala, need to do something that is larger than ourselves. Working for social transformation, being of service to people who are in need, developing our own highest spiritual potential. These are not big words, Mu'mineen. This is something that we can bring that change within ourselves, because there are two wings which will allow us to soar towards achieving the highest of human potential. We have been endowed with that potential. Let us not shortchange ourselves. One is by embracing huququllah, which are the rights of our Creator upon us, and we do that. We do that well in many cases. The rights of the creature, or the rights of our Creator upon us, be it our ibadat, which is what I call the vertical line with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to do all the obligations that we have been asked to do. But then there is also a vertical line that goes through, which is espousing huququl ibad, to actually observe the rights of the creatures of Allah upon us. And therefore, just to give you a sampling of what we're going to be covering, with that preamble, the first that we're talking about today is the power of intentional living. In order to really benefit, we need to understand what critical thinking is all about. And with the mental health issues, with everything that has followed us, what we need is Qalb Salim, a Quranic concept for tranquility. And then we talk about the value proposition of a human being, insan. We will be talking about emotional awareness and ethical mindfulness. We'll be talking about empathy and compassion. We'll be talking about the concept of the society of believers as to how we live. And we will do an introspection on a life well lived. And finally, how can the message of Karbala transform us individually and collectively? So, my friends, let the journey begin. But I will share something with you. Do not confuse motion and progress. Here is a simile, a rocking horse. A rocking horse keeps moving but does not make any progress. My friends, we keep moving, and if we are not making any progress, there is something wrong somewhere. Maybe we are on a rocking horse. Maybe we are merely within the rituals that we do, yet we are not making any spiritual or mental or social or economic progress because we are on this rocking horse. Let's not confuse motion with progress. Yes, there needs to be motion in order to progress. And I will share this beautiful slide with you. We all love butterflies. They're beautiful creatures. It's the wonder of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we look at the butterfly flying, the beautiful colors. Where does that butterfly come from? We know, it comes from a caterpillar. It emerges into a beautiful butterfly that illustrates the idea of change and transformation. A butterfly is a transformation. It's not a better caterpillar. And this is the meaning of transformation. Change means that you might go back to the old state. Transformation is you don't go back to the old state. You actually continue to develop. You continue to become that beautiful butterfly from a caterpillar. That is the meaning of transformation. How do we do that? How do we imbibe that level of transformation within ourselves? We will talk in detail. But this is just a simple example of behavior change. You know, behavior change does not come by merely listening to a lecture or by being told by an elder or by your teacher that change your behavior. That behavior has got to be imbibed within us so that there is transformation. I have said Salamun Alaikum. I started with Salamun Alaikum to everyone. He said Alaikum Salam wa Rahmatullah. And we bow many days. Well, my friends, that Salam has a meaning. That Salam means that when I have said peace be upon you, my brother or my sister, that means it is a guarantee. It is an ahad, it is a promise that when I have said Salamun Alaikum to you, that there will be no harm that will come from me to you because now I have guaranteed you the peace that I have told you. If I think of it that way, that when I say Salam, I am not merely ritualistically saying Salam, that I am saying that Salam with understanding to say peace be upon you my brother, peace be upon you my sister, then truly, that Salam has meaning. Every angle, every place we begin with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And we go about our day. Well, I have said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. These are simple, daily, everyday examples. I have said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Is it then possible that having said Bismillah, having said my Fajr prayers, having said Bismillah several times during the Fajr and after that, did I go out and do something that is not liked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I have said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. He is the beneficent, He is the merciful. Now, do I go during the day and do something bad, which is not liked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If I imbibe the message of Bismillah, I have said Allahu Akbar. When I say Allahu Akbar, what does that mean? My behavior change is that now that I have said Allahu Akbar, and now that I have said La ilaha illallah, just as Hazrat Bilal perceived that there is no other authority except for the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the ultimate authority. When I have said Allahu Akbar, then I know who I am referring to, and therefore there is nothing else that is going to subjugate me in the path towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, we say Qurbatan ilallah. For the niyah, we say Qurbatan ilallah. For the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Qurbatan ilallah. And we pray, how much of that qurba can we achieve if we have not imbibed the idea of saying, I am in His presence. I am as guilty as anyone, to say that our mind, the mind has a monkey in it. And the monkey keeps jumping. And especially when you're trying to concentrate in prayers, and you say, Qurbatan ilallah, I made the niyah of Qurbatan ilallah, then how can I not see that nearness? This is what I mean by transformation as compared to change. And I will try and finish the rest of this in time. If not, we will continue tomorrow, inshallah. But the first presentation is the power of intentional living. When we live, there must be intentional living. I have a purpose. I have a purpose of being here. You know, when we make a niyah of doing whatever, a niyah implies that it is central to our faith and our practice. It implies that I am now conscious of my choice of action, good or bad. I made the niyah, I made the intention. I'm going to do act X, I'm going to do act Y. Whatever that is my niyah of that intention. If one's life is lived intentionally and purposefully, then we know we have a choice of action. And those choices make a difference. Your intention elevates. Let me share a story. 3 men working on a building site. One man was asked, the first one, what are you doing? He said, I'm making bricks. The second person was asked, what are you doing? He said, I'm building a house. I am building a house so that I can earn some money so that I can feed my family. See the difference in the intention, the niyah? This man's intention was just to make bricks. The other man's intention turned that simple, they're doing the same job, making that simple intention of earning a living made his brick making a part of ibadah, because it is worship to earn to feed your family. So, niyah elevated one man over the other by merely his thought process, his intention. The third man was asked, what are you doing? He said, I'm building the house of God. I'm building a mosque. Can you see the lofty vision? That he saw the bigger vision, and his niyah elevated him towards even higher than earning a halal rizq for his family, to making sure that I am building something that is going to be spiritually beneficial. This is how niyah can actually elevate us. And if there is no niyah, niyah means, intention means to intend and aim at doing something. It is a link between knowledge and action. Obviously, if there is no knowledge of the thing, then there can be no intention. And if there is no intention, then no action can be taken. Therefore, the intention, the niyah to do something is a natural need, is part of our fitrah, whether it's good or bad, is in one's heart. And this is where the Blessed Prophet Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that al-a'malu bin niyah, the work of an action, lies in the intention. This is the action, that's we saw. And therefore, niyah has different grades. Actions committed to gain high or low status is part and parcel of niyah. But even in ibadah, if the intention is for other than Allah, then that intention becomes riyah, it becomes shirk. It's a very serious matter. That if you have the intention of doing anything except for Allah, the Blessed Prophet said that the latent shirk, which is called riyah, is like a black ant on a black stone on a black night. It is so subtle that it cannot even be perceived. There is this famous anecdote of Fazl bin Ibrahim, who built a mosque in Baghdad. And Fazl said, I don't want anybody to know that I built this mosque. This is my niyah. Keep it. Sometimes people do this, say, please, I made this charity, but don't tell anybody. This is our fitrah. I do want to, but I want to also be, that I want to be away from there. So, Bahlul was around at that time, and when Bahlul is around, you're in trouble. If you try and become double standards. So what Bahlul went, he went and wrote on that mosque, Bahlul Mosque. And Fazl got really infuriated. He said, why did you write your name on my mosque, on the mosque that I built? But Bahlul said, but you didn't want anybody to know that, this mosque, you only did it for Allah. So you didn't want anybody to know. So what difference does it make if I write my name? Allah knows that you built the mosque. This is where Riyah comes in. It is so latent. And this is something that we need to understand as to what the niyah can do to us. Wala matikan Imam Ali alayhi salam has said. We hear this often. It's all to do with niyah. The subject is the same. Then he said, verily, some people worship Allah being desirous of His reward. This is the worship of, as we know, traders. And some worship fearing Allah or His punishment. This is a worship of the slaves. Now we're not making any value judgment. Every person knows within his heart as to why they're doing what they're doing. But Imam is trying to tell us as to how niyah can elevate us. That if I do it out of profit, then I'm a trader. If I do it out of fear, then I'm not a free person. And then Imam says that a group of worshippers who worship Allah in gratitude to Him, this is the worship of the free. That, Ya Allah, I worship you, I make that ibadah because of your bounties that you have given me. That you are worth worshipping. I perceive that my worship is for you and for you alone. And this is such a beautiful concept. Rabia Basri was a famous lady, a Sufi, and she said something very similar, learning from Imam Ali. And she said, "Oh my Lord, if I worship Thee on account of the fear of hell, burn me in hell. If I worship Thee with the hope of paradise, exclude me from it. But if I worship Thee for Thy own sake, then withhold not from me from Thy eternal beauty." Look at the difference in terms of what we can do. I will try and end, on this note, with a few more minutes. That what should we really pray for? And that's the crux of this passage. What should we pray for? Well, I'd like to quote the founder of the Hawza of Khoei, Ayatollah Abdul Karim Hayri, a great scholar and one who established the Hawza of Khoei. He writes that when you ask Allah for something that is worthy. Again, intention. And he compares this to a child going into a big toy shop, Toys R Us. I don't know whether they're still in business or not. In Houston, I think they've closed all shops. But Toys R Us, if you walk into a Toys R Us, a little child goes in and they'll pick the first shiny thing that they see and they'll be happy. Ayatollah Hayri says, do not pick the first shiny thing which is dunya. When you ask him from the immense treasure that he has, ask him for something that is worthy of him. And now the answer that he gives, the next sentence that he gives, for me was a revelation. For me was a great revelation. He said, do you know what I asked? When I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is a great, weighty, worthy thing? This was a great scholar, a man of vision, a man of wisdom, a man with so many characteristics. And he said, when I ask Allah, I say that you may have made me a big scholar, a great scholar. You may have made me whatever you have made me. Ya Allah, I ask you that you make me a good human being. This is a lesson that we need to learn. Many a times we wear our Islam on our sleeve. I am a Muslim, I am a Shia, and I am superior, and I am so and so. I forget in all the appellations that I give myself, that has been sometimes crammed into my brain, of this exceptionalism. America is known for its exceptionalism. And we imbibe this idea of exceptionalism, where the idea is we forget that you cannot be a good Muslim unless you are a good human being. That is a prerequisite For anybody becoming a good Muslim, if you forget being a good human being, what does that mean? These are the lessons of Karbala that inshallah we will be discussing. That a good human being is something that's valuable and we need to strive to do that. So, we're finishing this on the power of intentional living. 80 years, 90 years, 100 years. People in Hunza live maybe 120 years. So the Misam has just come from that area, beautiful area where people live, over 100, but mostly it's 80, 90. It's a sum total of the consequences of our choice, whether I'm 70, 80, 90 or 100. The more conscious I am of my choice, then greater there is the potential of deciding wisely. And there is a greater possibility that at the age of 70 or 80, then I will not regret my actions because I made the right choices at that time. We have various age groups sitting here, in this auditorium. Whatever age you may be, maybe 7 years, maybe 10 years, you may be 60 years. Each time you have an opportunity, make the right choice with the right intention. A lot of mental health issues can also be addressed with that. So, I'm sure you'll enjoy this as to make an informed choice. Watch your attitude, because that's where your thoughts. Your attitude will impact your thoughts. Watch your thoughts, because they're going to influence your actions. It's all part and parcel of thinking, intention, and the niyah. Watch your actions, because then they will become your habits. And watch your habits, because those habits, doing it daily, will establish what your character is. And therefore, you need to watch your character, because it's your character that is going to determine your destiny. Inshallah, we will continue tomorrow with the part that I have still left to cover before we move on to the next one. Suffice it to say that making good choices requires moral maturity. Just as Karbala taught us to distinguish from right and wrong and to choose the right, to have the courage to choose the right, it's not easy. Imam was advised by many before he was leaving Medina that you can do various things. You don't have to do this. You don't have to put your life in danger. Well, to choose the right thing is never easy. And we will look at the second session here, which is a basis of critical thinking that we will be talking about tomorrow, that we need to evaluate situations and anticipate consequences. If we have that within our balance, a balanced mindset is going to take us away from a lot of issues that we may have. With that said, tonight we remember, normally it would have been the first night, which was yesterday, but we remember, let's remember that time when Imam alayhi salam was leaving Medina. It was a painful leaving. He leaves Medina on the 28th of Rajab, 60 Hijrah. As we said, he made his mission clear. He was not to fight Yazid, to get a throne or get an empire. But Imam's departure from Medina, we know in history that he refuses to give bayat to Walid. And then Imam alayhi salam goes and visits the grave of his grandfather. He visits the grave of his mother, and also he visits the grave of his mother. The crescent of Muharram, the first night of Muharram, reminds us of that party. It could be that when Imam alayhi salam made his decision to leave Medina, perhaps he may have gone to the graveside of his brother and said, "Oh brother, now the enemy is after my blood. It looks like the time for my martyrdom is near, and I am leaving you there. I am leaving you." Imagine the times that they had with the Blessed Prophet in Medina, playing with the Blessed Prophet, being educated, the two brothers. And today, Imam Hussein recollects and recounts all the good times. You know, when we have to leave our homes, when we have to leave our hometown, our birthplace, we recount. We recount what was happening during those times, and especially when you know that you're not going to return. Perhaps a dua may have come from Imam Hassan al-Islam to say, oh my brother, I bid you farewell and give you my son Qasim to become my sadaqah for Karbala. And then he goes to the graveside of his grandfather with his eyes closed. He says, oh my dear grandfather, my salutations to you. The land of Medina has become small for me. Tyrants among the Ummah are after my blood, and I am leaving Medina with a heavy heart. Mu'mineen, what could the response be from the Blessed Prophet? It is hard to imagine as to say that just 50 years after my passing, this is the state of the Ummah. And finally, Imam Hussein visits the grave of his mother and says, oh mother, accept my last son. I am leaving the land of Medina and will not come back. The prophecy of my grandfather is about to come true. What could a mother say except to say, perhaps, oh my beloved son, the one who I raised by keeping awake at night, how can I let you go alone? From this day that I will not rest in my grave, but my spirit will be with you throughout the journey. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Mu'mineen, let us pray that during this period of azab, that Allah gives us the tawfiq to understand the message of Karbala. Having understood the message of Karbala, to imbibe it within our hearts, and having imbibed it in our hearts, to give us the courage to emulate what Imam Hussein al-Islam did, and that was to establish social justice. May he accept our efforts during these days. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
وتوجه. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة، وعلي بن الحسين زين العابدين، ومحمد بن علي الباكر، وجعفر بن محمد الصادق، وموسى بن جعفر الكاذب، وعلي بن موسى الرضا، ومحمد بن علي الجواد التكي، وعلي بن محمد الهادي المكي، والحسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة بن الحسن القائم المنتظر المهدي يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا كامل الكفر والطغيان، السلام عليك يا دافع الظلم والعدوان. أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسخن الله تعالى مخرجك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم صل على